The village of Umuakama was nestled in the heart of eastern Nigeria, a place where the rising sun painted the skies with hues of gold, but dreams often lay buried beneath the dusty earth. The paths were narrow, flanked by sprawling farmlands and the occasional mud hut with thatched roofs. For Amara, a young girl with curious eyes and a quiet strength, life has always been a struggle wrapped in moments of fleeting joy. Her father, Moses, was a farmer, hardworking and hopeful. He often sat on their wooden stool under the mango tree, recounting stories of a brighter future to his children. Education is the ladder out of poverty, he would say, his voice filled with conviction. Amara, you must go to school. You must rise above this life. Amara, barely 10, would nod, her small hands clutching her father's calloused fingers. She believed him even though the world around her told a different story, but life in Umuakama was unforgiving. Crops failed, the skies withheld rain, and the shadow of hunger loomed large. Yet, through it all, Moses remained determined to send Amara to school, even if it meant working twice as hard. One fateful day, as Moses tended to the farm under the scorching sun, he collapsed. By the time the villagers carried him home, his breathing was shallow, his face pale. Amara watched, tears streaming down her cheeks, as her mother, Naomi, wept beside him. The man who had been their rock, their source of hope, passed away that night. Life after Moses' death brought untold hardship upon Naomi and her children. Naomi, overwhelmed by grief, took up menial jobs, sweeping compounds, fetching water for wealthier villagers, and selling akara by the roadside. Amara tried to help, often accompanying her mother to the market. The children in the village whispered about Amara's family. She used to be the one who spoke of dreams, they said. Now, they can barely eat. But even amidst the hardship, Amara's spirit remained unbroken. She was known for her kindness and her unwavering honesty, traits that endeared her to the villagers despite her family's poverty. One afternoon, as Amara was helping her mother to sell palm oil, a sleek black car pulled into the market square. It was a sight that made everyone stop and stare. From the car stepped a woman in a crisp Ankara dress. Her appearance captured everyone's attention. Who is she? Amara whispered to her mother. That's Mrs. Perians, Naomi replied in surprise. She's from the city, Lagos. As Mrs. Patience browsed the market stalls, her gaze fell on Amara. The girl's tattered clothes and bare feet were a stark contrast to the dignity in her posture. What's your name, young girl? Mrs. Patience asked, her voice soft but firm. Amara, Ma, she replied, her eyes wide with curiosity. Mrs. Patience smiled. She went to meet Naomi and exchange pleasantries with her. Later, she indicated her interest in Amara and requested her permission to take Amara with her to Lagos. Would you like to come to the city? I need someone to help around the house. You'll live with us, and I'll ensure you're taken care of. Amara's heart raced. The thought of leaving her family and village, especially her poor mother, was painful, but her mother's voice broke through her hesitation. This might be your chance, my love. Don't let fear hold you back. I believe that this is part of God's plan to help you fulfill your dream, and I will continue praying for you, my daughter. And so, at 13, Amara packed her few belongings and left the only world she had ever known. Lagos was a bustling city, filled with noise, lights, and unfamiliar sights. The towering buildings and endless traffic were overwhelming, but what struck Amara most was the sense of opportunity that seemed to buzz in the air. The Patience household was vast, with marble floors that gleamed under the chandelier lights. Amara was assigned a small room, and her duties included cleaning, cooking, and occasionally watching over Mrs. Patience's children. Unlike the harsh employers she had feared, Mrs. Patience and her husband treated her kindly. She noticed Amara's intelligence and integrity and decided to enroll her in one of the best private schools. Amara's first day at school was an ordeal. Her classmates, children of wealthy families, sneered at her simple clothes and looked at her with eyes full of surprises. Their weird looks stung, but Amara refused to let them break her. "I'm here to learn." Not to impress anyone, she whispered to herself, clutching her worn notebook. After a few years, Amara's resilience began to show. She excelled in her studies, particularly in biology, and dreamed of becoming a doctor. However, her journey was not without challenges. A group of girls, led by the wealthy and flamboyant Anita, often mocked her during lunch breaks. "You'll never fit in, Amara," Anita sneered one day, dangling a shiny gold chain. "But if you stick with us, life can be easier. We know how to have fun." The offer was tempting, but Amara thought of her mother's sacrifices and her father's words, "I'd rather struggle for something real than chase an empty promise." She replied firmly. Her determination alienated her from some classmates but earned her the admiration of her teachers and a few peers. Years rolled by, and Amara's hard work paid off. She graduated as the top student in her school, earning remarkable results in her WAEC and JAM exams. Her name became the talk of the school, and even Anita begrudgingly acknowledged her success. One day, representatives from an international scholarship program visited the school. They were searching for exceptional students from underprivileged backgrounds. When they heard Amara's story, they were moved. "She embodies the spirit of resilience," one of them said. Amara was awarded a full scholarship to study medicine abroad not just because of her background but exceptional performance in her examination and resilience. London was a world away from Lagos. The cold weather, foreign accents, and fast-paced lifestyle were a shock to Amara. But the challenges only fueled her determination. She whispered to herself, "Amara, you must fulfill your dream and become a doctor." Her days were filled with lectures, lab sessions, and endless hours of studying. Nights were often lonely, with homesickness creeping in. One day, she received a letter from her mother, telling her that her siblings had dropped out of school due to financial struggles. Guilt weighed heavily on Amara, and she considered abandoning her studies to return home, but a mentor reminded her, "You're not just fighting for yourself, Amara. You're fighting for everyone who believes in you." After 10 years of medical school in abroad, Amara returned to Umuakama not just as Dr. Amara, but a neurosurgeon. The villagers were all shocked because for several years they didn't see her. Although some heard that she'd taken to serve as a maid in Lagos, but now returning as a medical doctor was what they could wrap their head around. Before coming to Nigeria, Dr. Amara already got employed by a well-recognized hospital in abroad. She used her savings to build a modern hospital in the heart of the village, offering free healthcare to those in need. She didn't stop there. With the help of NGOs, she established schools, clean water systems, and roads, transforming the village into a thriving community. One evening, as Amara stood on the hospital balcony, she gazed at the village that had once seemed devoid of hope. The sounds of children laughing and the sight of families thriving brought tears to her eyes. "Papa," she whispered to the stars, "I hope I've made you proud." After spending 3 years in Umuakama village, she made an arrangement for her family and carried them along with her to abroad. Amara's journey to greatness and fulfillment of her dream wasn't just her own. It became a ray of hope for an entire community, proving that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire of change.